Alrighty, and welcome back to the Mother-Daughter Disney podcast. My name is Amanda. I'm here with my lovely mother.
Hi, I'm Jeanette.
And today we are going to give 10 tips for planning your Disneyland trip. So Disneyland in California, Anaheim, California. These tips are going to be for Disneyland and for Disney California Adventure Park, I would say. So kind of both overall. And they're not really in any particular order. They're just things that I observed when I went to Disneyland. Mm-hmm. So we go to Disney World frequently, like once to twice a year, sometimes 3 times a year. But Disneyland, we don't go to as frequently.
Right.
So it is a different park.
In years, right?
You haven't been there in like 10 years, yeah. But it's a different type of parks, yeah. So here's some up-to-date Disneyland tips that it would have been nice for me to know or be more familiar with when I was going, just to know. Again, no particular order necessarily. So first up is that Disneyland has its own app than Disney World. So all the Disney parks across the world all have their own app. And that is important because in Disney World, of course, everything's through the My Disney Experience app. You got to do all your reservations, all your lightning lanes, park times, the maps, everything's on the app. So Disneyland has its own app, but it is the same login as Disney World. Like you have the same account.
It's the same,
same account, but it's a different app. And when you're in that app, you will only see your Disneyland reservations. So you won't see your Disney World reservations. So for instance, if you have 2 trips booked for Disneyland and Disney World and you have your dining reservations booked already, you will only see your Disneyland ones in your Disneyland app.
Okay.
Only see your Disney World in the Disney World app.
But they both have the same login.
Yeah, same login because it's the same Disney account. It's just 2 different apps that you log in. So then there's 2 different user experiences. Okay. Now, because of that, of course, the apps are pretty similar for the most part. They're slightly different just because the parks are slightly different. So all to say, it's always good to just familiarize, what the app looks like, just because, again, it's going to be slightly different just because the parks are slightly different. But also, if you make a reservation and then you don't see it in the app, there's a possibility you're just in the wrong app, because I had that too. When we were planning for Disneyland and I was looking in the Disney World app and I was confused because I thought I made this reservation, but it was like, oh, it's just in Disneyland. That's the only reason why. So yeah. So 2 different apps for 2 different parks. Disneyland Paris also has its own app as well too. So I have the Disneyland Paris app too. Everyone's got their own app these days.
Okay, so every park is different. You can't go to 2 parks at the same time. So I'm surprised that it doesn't combine it, but you never know.
So another thing I would say is it's always good to review all of the rides before you go and just picking your must-dos before you go. But more, I say specifically, is consider the rides that are not in Disney World or the rides that are different between the 2 parks. So like Pirates of the Caribbean is like the most famous example, I would say. The rides in both parks, but they're not the same. So you may want to experience them.
Right, there's different aspects to each one.
Yeah, you may want to experience both of them because even though you can go on Pirates in Disney World and Magic Kingdom, the Disneyland one's quite different, I would say, overall. I would say almost all the rides that are duplicated between the parks are going to be slightly different, but some of them I would say are more different than others. So like Pirates is more different than, than the one in Magic Kingdom.
Again.
Whereas, for instance, arguably Haunted Mansion is actually pretty similar to the Haunted Mansion you have in Magic Kingdom, except if they have the overlay of the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay. Of course, that one makes it drastically different.
That's if you're going at that time of year.
Yeah, but overall, the ride is actually pretty similar. I would say overall it's not that drastically different.
I don't remember it at all.
So, I don't think we went on Haunted Mansion.
Wait a minute, I think that was closed when
we went 10 years ago, it was closed for refurbishment, which is another thing.
Closed.
Disneyland's refurbishments are all over the place. Like they refurbish, I would say, more frequently, and they have less lead time than Disney World. Like I feel like Disney World will announce a few months in advance.
It's letting you know.
We're going to refurbish this ride for like a few months, whereas Disneyland is like a week before. They're like, well, this ride's closing down. So if you're coming, it's like, well, too bad. You're not getting on this ride because it's closing for refurbishment. So again, always just good things to check. But I would say it's always good to have that list. And then when you're in the app too, you can like star the rides that you definitely want to do, like your must do. So that way when you're seeing them in the app, they like kind of pop up first, which is helpful because especially in Disneyland, there are so many rides in Disneyland. There's a lot of rides, even more so than Magic Kingdom has. So many rides in Disneyland. And a lot of them are, they're drastic from like the kiddie rides to like in the more thrill rides. They have everything in between. So if you're more focused on the thrill rides, you can kind of filter out the more kiddie rides. Or vice versa. If you want to do like the more kiddie rides, you can filter out those thrill rides and again focus on whichever you want to do. Again, there are just so many rides. It's sometimes good too just to Google what the ride is if you're not sure, because I did that as well too. I got a lot of shows as well as, again, just Google
like what is this? Disney World, okay.
Well, yeah, because Disneyland is just a big park in a general sense, especially too because Disneyland also has Galaxy's Edge in that park. So it's
that's right. It's at the same.
You have the entire park plus an entire land and plus Toontown as well too. Like Toontown and Galaxy's Edge are not in Magic Kingdom, so again, it just makes the park physically larger. Is all to say. But yeah, but it's always good to know which rides you want to go on, picking all your must-dos, and then again starring them into the app itself. Another thing as well that I would say is that there are many hotels and resorts in walking distance to Disneyland and Disney California Adventure Park. They are basically right next to each other, like across the walkway, so to speak, from each other. It really is the Disney bubble. Like you walk in and you are fully immersed in the Disney bubble for the most part once you get in there. And so because of that, all the hotels and resorts that are outside of the Disneyland area, this is like the famous thing that Walt kind of messed up on, and that's why he fixed in Florida, was that he didn't buy all the land around the park itself. So because of that, there's a lot of, I would say, less expensive hotels that you can go to in Disneyland. So for instance, in Disney World, if you want to be right walking distance to Epcot or walking distance to Magic Kingdom, you have to stay on Disney property. In Disneyland, you don't have to do that.
No.
I would say literally what I did was that I just zoomed in on Google Maps and just clicked on the different hotels that are within walking distance, and then just did the distance, like the walking distance, and how long would it take to walk to it. And Google Maps would just tell you from this hotel it takes 10-15 minutes to walk to the entrance of the park itself, and it'll give you the little walking route as well too. Now the walking route sometimes changes depending upon if they're doing construction, but for the most part it'll give you the little walking route, which is nice,
which makes it cheaper to go because you don't have to pay for Disney hotel rates.
Yeah, and that is what I'm saying too. Like this is why I'm confused that like Disney took away a lot of the good perks to stay on Disney property, because yes, Disney Californian Hotel is right there. It's like in downtown Disney. It is the closest. It's like the entrance for that park is almost in the park. It is not in the park, like you can't go from the hotel into the park, but it's very close, I would say, overall.
Comes into Disney, the downtown Disney.
Yeah, it comes into downtown Disney. Yeah, it's very close overall. But that hotel is so expensive. It is like thousands of dollars a night. And then the only perk you really have is like being a little bit closer, because like, and you get like one lightning lane is the thing, which again, before you used to have the early entry hours, which to me, that is a big perk, is to get early entry hours.
Come right out of the hotel and walk right in.
Especially because there are so many hotels in the surrounding area that people can stay at that they have to walk a little bit longer. Like where we stayed, I think we had a 10 to 15 minute walk from our hotel, like door to door from our hotel into the entrance of the park. Not even to downtown Disney. Downtown Disney was only like less than 10 minutes. But again, because downtown Disney is actually pretty big, all things considered.
Yeah, you have to walk through it. You got to walk
to
the entrance.
Downtown Disney.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So to the entrance of the park, about 10 to 15 minutes, which isn't really that bad. You can walk 10 to 15 minutes from like the Dolphin Resort to Epcot, and you're on Disney property in that sense. Like that's even longer, I would say. I feel like that's more of like a 20 to 30 minute walk actually. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like you're so close, and you can get thousands of dollars less. Like we only paid a few $100s for our like 2 or 3 nights, whereas we would have paid thousands of dollars to stay on Disney property. Which is why I feel like they should give more perks to staying on Disney property. Yeah. Now there are 3 Disney hotels in Disneyland. So you have the Disney California Hotel, you have the Pixar Hotel, and then you have the Disneyland Hotel. So there are the 3 of them, and where we stayed, it was really close to one of the other Disney hotels. Now I've heard obviously great things about the Disney hotels. I've heard great things about the Disney, I forget what they're called, like the Good Neighbor hotels or something like that.
Yeah, they call them Good Neighbor, right?
Yeah, like some of the Good Neighbor hotels also, I've heard really great things about them. And the Good Neighbor hotels in Disneyland are usually a little bit more themed too. Like they have the Disney licensing to have like, the fun Disney characters in the rooms and stuff like that. And then a lot of those hotels as well, because like the parking in California is just wild beans, if we're being honest. The parking lot for one of the extra parking lots for Disneyland is honestly further than our hotel was, and then they have a shuttle that takes you from the parking lot to the entrance of the parks, because again the parking situation is just pretty tough in that area.
You can tell. Even I remember when we went, it's like all enclosed. It's like not open.
Yeah, it's a pretty oversaturated area in a general sense. So again, so they do have flow parking lots. So some of the meet and greet hotels are, again, they're pretty far away, but they will have shuttles that will take you to the entrance. Whereas again, if you're okay taking the shuttle, there's nothing wrong with taking the shuttle. But again, other hotels that are not, the Good Neighbors can be walking distance still. So again, just a lot of options, I would say. Whereas Disney World doesn't have that. Like if you're staying in a Good Neighbor hotel, you have to take a special shuttle to get onto the property.
You can't walk into the park.
You can't walk.
No, their Good Neighbor hotels are mostly outside Disney Springs.
All right, up next, they bring out the ice cream carts and then they roll them away at night, which I did not know that. So you cannot get a Mickey bar in the evening from like an ice cream cart. They're not there 24/7, which is kind of wild to me. Now the popcorn carts, they do stay out all the time. They stay out. So I guess popcorn, is a bigger deal in Disneyland. But yeah, and I know too, like the churros are a really big deal as well. But for instance, when we were there, I really wanted a Mickey bar at night, and I was like, oh, on our way out, I'll just get a Mickey bar on our way out. No place to get a Mickey bar, not a single location to get a Mickey bar. I was floored to the point where I asked cast members what happened to all the ice cream carts that were out during the day. They're like, oh, they were rolled away for the evening. And I was like, good to know.
I wonder why they do that.
I think it's partially because they had a nighttime parade at the time. So, and the nighttime parade was for the 70th anniversary, and it's over now, actually, ironically enough. So I don't know if they would still have the ice cream carts put away for the nighttime parade or not, if it's just like too much going on. I'm not sure, if I'm being honest, why the ice cream carts.
Because that's just another way to make money. I mean, people are hanging in the park. I mean, especially if it's summertime or whatever, you would think that they would sell a lot of ice cream bars.
Yeah, I don't know. Couldn't tell you.
Ice cream sandwiches or
now,
whatever.
we went in April, so perhaps maybe it was like a little chilly. Like it was a little chilly. I guess when we went, it wasn't hot. It definitely was not like
maybe
hot.
Maybe it wasn't
or
an ice cream season.
Yeah, like I was. That's what I'm saying. I mean, like I was wearing a sweatshirt for half the time we were there. Yeah. But yeah, perhaps that's why they're like, we're making more money on popcorn than ice cream right now. So we're rolling away the ice cream carts. But it was strange. I couldn't get a Mickey Mickey bar. I was like honestly pretty shocked. Yeah. Because then even when we went into downtown Disney, we went into one of the sweet stores in downtown Disney and ended up getting a cupcake there. And they did have ice cream there, but the ice cream I think was sold out because the ice cream cases were like empty. Like, it's hard to explain. It didn't look bad that it was empty, but it was just like a refrigerated section that it didn't have anything in it. So I'm just like, I'm assuming, I guess they just sold out of ice cream. I'm not really sure, honestly.
Well, maybe because there's no Mickey bars.
I don't know. It was just strange. It was very strange, I would say. Now, I probably wouldn't have that problem if I was staying on property because they probably would have a little gift store or something where you could get ice cream.
That sells Mickey bars.
I'm not sure if I'm being honest because we didn't stay on property, but it was interesting to say the least. But yeah, but so if anyone wants an ice cream bar, you got to get it early.
Get it early. Get it for an afternoon snack.
Get it. Don't wait around because you're not going to get it in the evening. That's for sure.
That's a shame because that's what I'd want for dessert. If
I know, that's what I'm saying.
What do you want for dessert? I want a Mickey bar.
And I'll say too, obviously I don't know Disneyland Park because like when we're in Disney World, like when I went with my friends, it's like if they ask, it's like, oh, I want this or I want a coffee or I want this type of drink or this type of snack. I know exactly in that park where the carts are, where the carts have moved, where the festival booths are, like which stores or which gift shops are going to sell what type of food. So I know those parks so well. So to be in Disneyland where the park is so similar but also slightly different, and I don't know where all the carts are, and I don't know
how
like
people feel
where the restrooms are.
The time.
Yeah, you are a little disoriented. So it's like, well, I don't actually know where the ice cream cart is. I have to go seek one out.
Wasted time seeking out.
Yeah, it's just interesting in that sense. Yeah. So, all right, up next is, all right, so the festivals in Disneyland are different than the ones at Disney World. Specifically, all of their festivals, for the most part, are in Disney California Adventure Park, and they run at different times of the year, and this can overall impact the flow of traffic and the flow of like experience in the park itself. So, for instance, when we went in DCA, they were having their Food and Wine Festival. They have it in the spring. So in Disney World and Epcot, the Food and Wine Festival is only in the fall. So again, just different timings of the year when the festivals are. Now, because of this, again, they will have different booths that are set up. Like Epcot, the booths are only open at certain times of the day. So like when you first walk in, the booths aren't going to be open yet. And then they will open like the middle of the day, and then they'll start serving their food and drink and stuff. Similar to Epcot, they only have like the high top tables, so to speak. So there's not a lot of seating necessarily around the booths. Now, I did feel like even though we were there during Food and Wine, I did feel like the festival wasn't as big of a deal as it is in Epcot, for instance. Like I feel like when you go to Epcot during a festival, especially Food and Wine, there are booths everywhere. The people are eating, drinking everywhere. Like it is a huge deal. Yeah. Everyone's talking about the Food and Wine Festival. Like it is major. When I was in DCA, in the heart of like when Food and Wine was going on, it didn't feel like that big of a deal. Like it felt like there were booths around, but like some of them had lines, some of them didn't, you know. It's, you know, they had even like the special passport things, you know, where you can get like the stamps or the stickers or whatever. They even had that there too, and I feel like no one was really doing that. I feel like, I don't know, it was just interesting. I feel like it just wasn't as big of a deal, I guess, in Epcot. I feel like Epcot, it's like every festival is like a massive deal, like Festival of the Arts, Food and Wine, Festival of the Holidays, Flower and Garden.
Do they advertise as much as
they
Disney
do?
does?
I feel like I think part of it is just that for Food and Wine, because you know, I know Disneyland is trying to expand out of being known as, I say in quotes, the locals park, because up until recently it has been known as the locals park. So you could argue once Food and Wine opens, all the locals flock there to see all the new stuff, and then, you know, a couple weeks into it, it's like, well, they've already seen all the new stuff, so it's like, all right, they'll wait until the next festival.
Yeah, you're not getting as many tourists coming in to do that.
So I know they're trying to transform Disneyland into a more international park, the way that Disney World is definitely an international park. Like Disney World doesn't really have an off season for the most part, whereas Disneyland does have off seasons just because, again, it caters more to locals than it does to international. But again, they're trying to change that, which I think is what the Food and Wine Festival is for, to change that. But you can definitely tell overall, I think the festival didn't feel as big of a deal as it does like when you go to Epcot. Because even if you're at the end of the festival at Epcot, it's still like massive. There are people still buying stuff.
Ridiculous.
There's still lots of merch to be purchased. Like everyone wants, you know, all the special items. Or again, even merch wise, like there was some merch for the Food and Wine Festival, but not like the way it is in Epcot at the very least. It's just different, is all to say. So I don't know, just interesting, something to consider at the very least. All right, up next we have most of the restaurants and the quick service restaurants in Disneyland are open air with little AC, since Anaheim tends to be pretty mild weather 99% of the year.
99%.
Now that doesn't mean it doesn't rain, doesn't mean there aren't heat waves, doesn't mean it doesn't get cold spouts or anything like that. But it's just to say a lot of the, especially their quick service restaurants, a lot of them are open air. So even if there's like indoor parts, it's not like there's no doors. Like they can't close it off to the outside
from the
world.
Heat or the cold or the rain. Or the
so it's like, because I remember when we went, we happened to go to California 10 years ago during an actual heat wave. It was like in the 100s Fahrenheit.
Yes,
it was so hot and humid. And everyone they were saying, this is like an abnormal heat wave that we're having. Like it's normally not like this in California. And I remember we went to Wine Country Trattoria, which I went again actually this past time too. But when we went, 10 years ago, it was horrible because it was so
hot. You couldn't
I remember
even eat.
too, my mom said, like, can we sit inside? And the girl was like, okay, but it's a fully open air restaurant. So we're like, what was the point of us sitting inside? She didn't bother to
say, well, it's not going to have, it was better inside than it was outside, obviously.
Well, because we're in the shade at least,
was kind of coming down. But I got to tell you, I mean, we didn't do any good because everything was like sweltering.
Yeah, it did. I would argue it did nothing.
Yeah, we had a tough time that time.
Vice versa, because this time when we went, we did sit outside, but when the sun went down, the temperature dropped a little bit, so it was a little chilly. So I was like, well, I'm going to put on my sweatshirt, and then the wind picked up a little bit. I'm like, well, I'm going to braid my hair because it's getting a little windy. Yeah. But if we had sat inside, we wouldn't have felt the wind necessarily inside. But again, it's just like, it's all open air. But I know it's a lot of the restaurants are like that. Now, some of the restaurants, they do have, do I have that as a tip in here? Yeah, so the next tip is kind of combined, I would say, with this tip, because the next one I have is that DCA doesn't have as many table service restaurants, but Downtown Disney does. So for instance, they do have table service restaurants that will be like fully indoors, closed windows and everything, that you're inside in an immersive experience. Right. But overall, when I was looking to say, like, where do we want to eat in the parks and everything, Disneyland definitely has a few options for table service. DCA, not that many options. No. I think there's like 3 or 4 options for actual sit down restaurants with full menus.
There wasn't many at all.
Yeah, they have some lounges that they consider table service or sit down, because you can make a reservation, you sit down, but then they only have like appetizer type food, I would say. They don't really have meals overall. Snacks. Yeah, but I think part of why DCA doesn't need that is because you can just walk out of the park and go to Downtown Disney, and Downtown Disney again isn't within, it's almost like part of the park, honestly.
It's right there. You walk out the gates and go right there.
And Downtown Disney is almost only restaurants. It's like restaurants and shops for the most part.
They've also upped Downtown Disney since I've been there. You've been there, but I have not been there.
Well, we didn't go to Downtown Disney.
We did. We ate there.
No, I'm saying I didn't go this past time.
Oh, you didn't go to Downtown Disney. I watch what goes on, and I see that they have really upped the restaurants and stuff since even we've been there.
Yeah, they really have. Like, when you walk through it, it is so nice. And you don't need, even if you just, again, locals area, you don't need like a Disney ticket to get into Downtown Disney, of course. So it's like fun. There's lots of people around. There's like music everywhere. It's just like Disney Springs, honestly.
Yeah, they really expanded
lots of music,
it since
lots of restaurants.
When we were there, it was really not a couple of restaurants and a bakery, and that was about it.
And Downtown Disney is open until like 1 in the morning or something like that. And they have lots of little carts too with lots of food as well. So like lots of options really for like carts and food and things like that. So I feel like because of that, DCA and Disneyland arguably don't necessarily need table service restaurants.
They don't have that much room to add that much either.
They don't. So you can very easily just go into Downtown Disney, very close walk, and then you can just re-enter the parks. Like, it's very easy overall, I would say, which is pretty nice. And again, those restaurants in Downtown Disney seem to be mixed. Some of them were like they had indoor areas, some of them had outdoor seating. So it's kind of like an option for the two. But I do like that because it does, I think, broaden your horizons of what you can eat when you're in the parks. Right. Like, we always say jokingly, like Magic Kingdom and like Hollywood Studios, they don't really have a lot of great food options. So if you really want to get food options, you have to leave the park. But for Hollywood Studios, for instance, leaving the park is a trek. Like, there's nothing close to Hollywood Studios when you walk out of that park.
Once you leave the park, I'm not going back.
Yeah, it is like, I mean, like, you can go to the boardwalk area, but the boardwalk area is still a boat ride or a pretty like a 10 to 15 minute walk away, I would say, overall. Yeah. Or again, you can take the Skyliner to the Riviera and the hotels. But you still have to travel on some kind of transportation to go back and forth. Yeah, exactly. You can't just like walk out casually in 5 minutes. Have a nice dinner and then walk back in. And same thing with all the other parks. You can't really do that. Like, I definitely can't do that in Animal Kingdom. Animal Kingdom has nothing around it. No. Epcot, again, you can a little bit if you really wanted to. And then Magic Kingdom, again, a little bit with the monorail resorts. Yeah. But otherwise, though, for the most part, again, it's just like a fun difference between the two parks. You can go out and have a nice
Disney
meal.
Springs is too far away from all the Disney World parks to say, oh, let's go to Disney Springs
That's
for
true.
dinner,
you would never
and then
do
go
that.
back to the park. It would be like impossible.
Because there's no even direct buses between the parks and Disney Springs.
They don't take you back to the parks.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So it's like you'd be trapped in Disney Springs and then have to like Uber back or something. Right. And now even to a Disney World, you have to have a guest reservation to get to the hotels and then get back
now
on
they're going to
another
start
bus.
cracking
So
down
it's even
on
more
that.
about that. So which is wild beans if you think about it. So yeah, but anyway, loved it. Downtown Disney. We did not have time to go to Downtown Disney. That is another tip I had here, was if you have time to make time for Downtown Disney, because it was really fun walking through. They had so many cute little shops and restaurants and things that you can do. Like, you can make a whole day of just being in Downtown Disney. We didn't have time for that, so I would say it's up to you. If someone, like, if you want to make time for that, you definitely can. If you're like gonna skip it and just do the parks, you can do that too. That's what we did. I do wish we had more time to spend in Downtown Disney, but again, we were only there for 2 days, and so I just did a park a day, and that was about it. You just have to go back. Yeah. All right. Up next, we have our last 2 tips here. So first is that Fantasmic is literally in Disneyland, in the Disneyland park. You stand and watch it in Disneyland. So they still have Tom Sawyer's Island in their like frontier area. That is the stage for Fantasmic. I know that was a big thing. Okay. Yeah, when they took away the Liberty Bell ferry boat ride in Magic Kingdom, there was a lot of sorry, my cat is attacking my mom's sweatshirts. He's going to put a little hole in it with his claws. But yeah, so when they took away the Liberty Bell in Magic Kingdom, it was obviously it was very controversial at the time. But everyone knew in Disneyland, they simply could not do that because
that's where they stage.
Yeah, that water area, that whole area with the island and everything, that is where Fantasmic is. Now, I don't know if they have space to build another amphitheater the way the Hollywood Studios has with their amphitheater, where they, where Fantasmic is in Hollywood Studios. But yeah, but the fact that it's right there is wild because during the day, they randomly brought out that pirate ship from Fantasmic. And I guess they were just doing a little run with it around the circle. I'm not sure what they're doing, maybe some kind of maintenance or something. But it was funny because when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, there is a massive pirate ship just in that water.
Hanging out.
That is wild. That is also to say, there is a ride in Disneyland where you can sit in a real canoe with a paddle and you canoe around with strangers.
Oh, that's right. You told me about that.
Which was also wild beans to me that you can actually go canoeing, like freelance canoeing
on your own
in the park in Disneyland.
Yeah.
And when you see that, because then it's funny because you see the people with the canoe with the cast member, obviously not like just in the canoe by yourself. And it's a pretty big canoe. I'm not sure if it would be called a canoe, I guess, because it's a bunch of people. Whereas I don't really know my boats that well.
Canoe. Okay.
Anyway, but they had to pause and just sit in the freestanding water while the pirate ship went by a little circle. And this pirate ship is massive. I can't even imagine being in a canoe when that was happening because it's just so funny. But yeah, it's just wild to think. And I would say too, what a unique ride that is. I think if we had more time, I would consider doing the canoeing just for funsies.
Oh, just to go do it?
But yeah, we didn't have time for the canoeing. I had other things I wanted. I was only there for 2 days. I was only in Disneyland for 1 day. So yeah, I had other rides I would have wanted to do over that. But if I did have time, I probably would have done the canoe because I think that would have been really interesting to do. But also, I couldn't even picture canoeing in Magic Kingdom. Like, we never had that in Magic Kingdom.
Could you imagine? No.
Yeah, we never had that in Magic Kingdom. So I can't even picture canoeing around. Yeah, but you can canoe in Disneyland. And again, that stage then is for Fantasmic. Now, because of that, that means a few things. First of all, it means that there's no seating for the most part for Fantasmic. Now, if you do one of the dining packages for Fantasmic, they have these lower areas where you could stand and watch the show. Same thing for World of Color, actually. There's no seating for World of Color either in DCA. But yeah, but if you do the dining packages, they'll just have sectioned off areas in the front where then, when you have your little ticket to go in and you can stand closer up, I would say.
That's what I remember about World of Color. We knew that we were going to have to stand and wait, and it was so hot and we were so tired that we saw it from our balcony from the hotel, not in the park, because we just couldn't stay anymore. It was just so bad.
It was just so hot that day. Yeah. It was a problem with that day.
Yeah.
But anyway, though, so for them, so you do stand.
So everybody just stops and just watches all of that.
They just watch it, yeah.
Does the park close after that then?
When I went, the park did not close right away. It was open for another hour.
So it was open.
I think it depends. Like Magic Kingdom, it depends. Sometimes
that alleviates the crowds all trying to leave all at the same time.
Yeah, I would say it just depends. So
okay.
Yeah, but from when I was there, the park did not close right away after Fantasmic. It was open for another hour or two. But yeah, so everyone's standing during the show. But because of that, the area is really big. Now, I'll admit, we haven't seen Fantasmic in Hollywood Studios in a while.
No, it's been a while.
It's been a while since we've seen it. But what I do remember seeing it in, though, is because it's such a massive show. So, for instance, if you're sitting on the edge of the show and then, because it's kind of in a semicircle, right? So if you're at the edge of one semicircle and then one person sitting at the other edge of the semicircle in Hollywood Studios, you can still kind of see most of the show for the most part.
Right.
Because of the way Disneyland is set up, if you're on the edges of the show, there are things you're definitely not going to see because you're on the edge, is all to say. So you will see most of the show, but you won't see the full show because they do prioritize the center. Not to say that things will come around in the circle, like when the ferry boat comes around, you see all the characters on the ferry boat, they will come around, everyone gets a good view of them. When the pirate ship comes around, you will see a good view of the pirate ship. Now, the pirate ship scene is the most fun I've seen, if we're being honest. Everyone loves the pirate ship scenes. That's the one Peter Pan, he's fighting Captain Hook. Yeah. But because the ship is moving, the show goes on. So if you see it when they first start, you don't see the finale, so to speak, like when Captain Hook falls,
Oh, so okay, because it's going the other
way. So when it gets to the other side of the semicircle, so to speak, it's almost so far away that you can't really see the finale of that fight scene, so to speak.
Okay.
And so because of that, it's just interesting because that means everyone in that audience gets a slightly different show. Which makes it, I think, really fun, actually, and unique.
Well, I guess especially if you're a local, because then if you go back and you want to see it, you go stand on the other side.
Yeah, you stand in your favorite spot because then there's another part of the show where they have the princesses, dance with the the couples, so to speak. Every couple's on its own little mini float, almost like a cavalcade on mini float, and they're floating around and they dance. But then there are different ones where they will kind of favor different sections of the audience. So again, if you're like a Beauty and the Beast fan, it's like, oh, that you should go. We should stand in this section because the
Right,
float
that's where you're
spends
gonna
most
see
time
it.
over here.
Right.
It will maybe float around to the other sections, but it spends most of its time over here. So and that's what I'm saying. I think, and I actually kind of like that because again, it just means like you always get a different show wherever you
Right.
stand. So it's like you can always experience a show in a different way, which I think is really fun, honestly. But again, I didn't know that when we were there. So
you just saw what was there.
Yeah, I just stood in the back. I stood by New Orleans Square. So right when you come out from Blue Bayou, kind of like right there as I stood. I was in like the last row too. It wasn't that crowded when we went that night, honestly, so it wasn't that bad. Yeah, but I stood there and I just watched the show, you know, through some heads and everything. And we had a great show. I mean, like I stood basically in the middle. So and we were even playing a watching Fantasmic. It was like a last minute thing. We ended up watching Fantasmic during that night. But it was fun to watch. I'm glad we got to see it and see it also in the park and see it that way because I was like, I didn't realize that's what it was. I didn't realize it was going to be right there. Just wild beans. All right. And then our last little tip that we have here. So again, we're probably going to do a whole episode on lightning lanes in Disneyland versus Disney World because it is quite different.
Oh, okay.
But the main tip I would have for lightning lanes in Disneyland is that if you purchase your lightning lane, when you purchase your ticket, you can purchase your lightning lane at the same time. They do the same thing as Disney World, multi-pass with, you know, all the rides with the different tiers and then single pass for like the top tier ride, so to speak. That's separate. The same thing, you cannot purchase the single pass in advance. So for instance, if you want to do like Rise of the Resistance, you can't purchase that in advance. You would purchase that day of. But you can purchase the multi-pass in advance. All that really means that is that they, as of right now, like as of recording, they don't do the 3 rides like in advance, like the week before you go, you can pick your 3 rides out. They don't do that. But what they do is that the parks, let's say the park is going to open at 8 a.m. You arrive early, you know, you're standing in line waiting to get in at 7 a.m. At some point before 8 a.m., they will start letting the crowds into the park, like scanning their tickets, so to speak, to get in the park just for crowd control. And then you can't go on the rides or anything yet. They just have people, you know, line up, you know, different areas of the parks before the park officially opens. But once you scan in, you can book your first lightning lane of the day. You can only have one at that time because it's kind of similar to Disney World. You book your first one, and then after 2 hours, you can book your next one, or after you use that first one, you can book your next one. And the app will actually tell you, like, if you book, whenever you booked it, it'll say, like, at this time is when you can book your second one. So that way, if you're trying to stack lightning lanes, you can do that. But anyway, all that is that to say is that if the park opens at 8 a.m., I would actually suggest just getting to the park earlier than that.
Oh, yeah, so you don't have that luxury of doing it before you get there.
Yeah, so but it also to say too is that all those people who got there like at 7 a.m., so to speak, or like an hour before the park opened, as soon as they started letting people in, all those people are booking their first ride, which means that, you know, like some of the more popular rides, like if it opens, like say again, the park opens at 8 a.m., let's say
8 o'clock comes.
Not necessarily, because again, you can only book one ride at a time, so everyone's only booking one, but it will mean that some of the rides will get pushed a little bit later in the day. So Indiana Jones and Disneyland is like, I would say, the big one. So as soon as you get into the park, again, a lot of people are booking Indiana Jones, so that one could already be at like 12 p.m. noon or something like that, rather than when you get into the park, rather than like an 8 a.m. one or something. Right. And DCA, same thing. The Guardians of the Galaxy ride.
If you book that 12 something, you can't book another one all morning until
you have to wait.
No,
you have to wait 2 hours.
That is inconvenient.
You just have to wait 2 hours is all.
Oh, 2 hours.
So for instance, in DCA, that's what I'm saying. I think we're going to do a whole episode on this. So let's say you're getting into DCA, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout is the big ride there. You get in right at 7 a.m. No, let's say you didn't get in at 7 a.m. So other people got in at 7 a.m. The park opened at 8. You get in at 8. Well, again, all those people from like 7:15 to 8 have already been booking their own lightning lanes for what they want. Again, they can only book one at a time. So that means all those people, if they are putting all of their eggs in the Guardians of the Galaxy basket, that time may be in like the late afternoon now. Let's say now that time's at like 1 p.m. because they all booked it. But that usually means all of the other rides are a lot sooner. So you can kind of stack your rides that way if you really want to. So in that sense, I would say you would want to, well, again, there's different strategies, of course, too, when you do Lightning Lane. There's a lot of different strategies. A lot of people talk about the different strategies that you can do when like Lightning Lane comes out and everything. But it's all to say that it's like when you rope drop, it's better to get to the park early, so at least then you have the option to decide what you want to do. And so then you have like the most options available to you, rather than getting there maybe like at 8:30, an hour after the park opens, and then suddenly you have way less options.
Yeah, the big tip is you got to go early.
Yeah, because for instance, by the time you get in, if you're doing Lightning Lane list, because by the time you get in, if the Lightning Lane for Guardians of the Galaxy is already sold out for the day, well then you don't even get a chance to do Guardians of the Galaxy, so they can only do the other rides. But those other rides, they're also booking up as people have been using their own passes. Because again, once they go on a ride, they can rebook the next one immediately. So for instance, if you do like a burner ride, because we do this a lot in Disney World too, you book a ride really quickly just to use the pass to be able to book the next one. Well, now others are kind of getting through their rides really quickly. So you just have to keep in mind again how the Lightning
going on. Again, it's a strategy.
Yeah, the strategy ride behind Lightning is very interesting because, again, there's so many different ways you can do it, and there's no right or wrong way, honestly. It's just like how you want your day to kind of look like, so to speak, overall. Right. And that's going to depend upon, you know, whatever rides you want to do, whatever rides the family wants to do, whatever the weather may be, or again, whatever priorities, how long you're going to be there or something. And that's not even to say, too, there are a lot of rides in Disneyland that don't have Lightning lanes. So that's like another thing. That was like, did I have that in here or did I skip that tip? I thought I had put that down in here somewhere. But yeah, there are a lot of rides. Oh yeah, I did have, wow, I skipped right over it over here. Yeah, many rides in Disneyland are not on Lightning Lane. So for instance, the Peter Pan ride, Pirates of the Caribbean, many of the Fantasyland Dark rides, almost all the rides in Pixar Pier and DCA, none of them are on Lightning Lane. So keeping that in mind, then it's like, okay, you know, then you're doing your Lightning Lane rides, but then you can kind of infill with the rides that don't have Lightning Lane anyway, so you'd have to do standby, you know, anyway. Now, I actually kind of like that to a certain extent because then that means everyone is just doing the same thing in that sense, whereas in Magic Kingdom, almost every ride is on Lightning Lane, so you don't really have that luxury. No. I think it's like, only like the People Mover is not on Lightning Lane. I don't know if there's any other rides that's not on Lightning Lane off the top of my head.
The only luxury you have is that you don't have to get there at 7 o'clock in the morning. You can book your 3 rides.
Well, yeah, you have 3 in advance.
Stack them up and then you can get there and do what you have to do.
Again, it just changes the strategy all to say. Yeah, but the fact that a lot of rides are not on Lightning Lane is good to also look up too, because if you're thinking, well, Peter Pan's my top ride, so I'll just get Lightning Lane for that. It's like, well, you can't. You just have to do standby.
Just wish none of the rides were on Lightning Lane. Everybody just got online.
Yeah, so that's all to say is just, again, Lightning Lane is very interesting. I think we'll probably do a whole episode in a couple of weeks that's solely on Lightning Lane and different strategies.
That'll be Amanda talking too, because when we go, Amanda does all the Lightning Lanes.
Yeah, different strategies considered, because you can get really in depth with Lightning Lane and how it works and like what you want to do and how to maximize your time and maximize the money that you spent, you know, on Lightning Lane. It's very interesting.
I can't go to the park by myself. I'll just be wandering around.
Yeah. I think it's really fun to think about that strategy just because I really like Disney and I just think it's really interesting and fun. But again, it's just so complex. And then, you know, it's one of those things you can't get hung up on being like, oh, I missed out on something, because then you always be thinking back instead of thinking forward. It's like if you miss out on something, you just got to keep going forward.
Just keep going and do the next best thing.
Yeah, you just got to think that way. So, or yeah, so that was, I would say, I don't know, I guess that ended up being like 11 to 12 tips, I suppose, on Disneyland about just planning the Disneyland trips, things to keep in mind, things that I learned when I was in Disneyland. So definitely let us know on our Instagram, AlmostAmandaX. I will have it linked in the description as well too. Again, are you going to Disneyland anytime soon? Let us know if you have any questions or any things that you learned that, again, would be a good tip to share with others as well in Disneyland, because I would love to know. We do have our Disney quote for today. Our Disney quote is, the important thing is that we stick together. Like just when you're in Lightning Lane running through that rope drop, you stick together, everyone.
Who said that?
Buzz Lightyear said that in Toy Story.
I was going to say it had to be Toy Story.
Yep. Important things that we stick together. But yeah, do you have a Disney memory for today's podcast,
What,
Mom?
the Lightning Lanes?
No, just in general, Disneyland memory. You went to Disneyland.
Disneyland. I got to tell you, Disneyland is a blur to me. I have to admit. It really is. The only thing I remember going on is the Ferris wheel.
Yeah.
That ride I remember. Other than that, don't remember much about anything because it was so hot and so miserable. Well,
it was 10 years ago, and we did other stuff that trip. Like we went to San Diego that trip. We did other things.
We did a lot of stuff that trip, and it was hot all the way through. So it was tough. Eating was tough. Everything was tough. And the only thing I really remember is we went up on the Ferris wheel, which was fun. I always loved Ferris wheels. I just love Ferris wheels, and that was like really nice. But the other rides, I don't go. Like I didn't go on the Tower. What is it? The Tower
Mission
of Terror.
Breakout.
Mission. Yeah, I don't do all of that. But everything else, I mean, I had a good time, and I loved the fact that Disney Springs was right there. But I don't remember much.
Again, the biggest thing I remember from when we first went, it was just interesting to me how much people loved the churros in comparison to.
Oh really? Okay, I didn't even notice.
In comparison to Walt Disney World, because everyone always talks about the churros. Now I'm not a big churro person, honestly, which is funny because at the end of the day, every culture has their fried dough dipped in sugar, right? Everyone does it slightly differently. All basically the same thing. And my preferred method of fried dough in sugar is beignets.
Yes, beignets is my first too.
So I do think a churro is good, but I will say when I did have the churro in Disneyland, it was way better than any churro I've had anywhere else. It was warm. It was warm. And I guess I think now looking back to all the churros I've had previously, I think every other churro I've ever had is just stale, is what I feel like it is.
Probably. Chewy.
Yeah, because it's like, well, not chewy. They're almost, because the one in Disneyland was like crispy on the outside and then like a little soft on the inside. The other ones I've had otherwhere were a little bit too crunchy, I guess, almost like they were stale crunchy wise. I don't know how to explain it. Or like maybe they were burnt. I'm not really sure.
Ever eat a churro, so I could not even
I don't usually
rate
eat churros. I'm not a big churro person, but again, I did have to get one when I was there, and they're everywhere. And they have like different, sometimes they'll like have little decorations or like things around them with like different sugars on them and stuff like that, or flavors to make them more fun. I just got a plain one. It was easy just to get a plain one. Very good though. So definitely would recommend the churro, because I don't know if I've heard the ones at Disney World aren't as good, which makes sense because we're not known for the churros in Disney World. Right. But yeah, if you're Disneyland, you got to get at least one churro.
They don't really push the churros in Disney World.
No, there's a lot of other random things I would say that they push in Disney World.
They push more.
But all right, thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. Make sure you give us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or leave a comment down below if you're watching on YouTube. Again, let us know, are you going to Disneyland anytime soon? What are your top tips for going to Disneyland? We would love